What's up, guys? It is Sam here, and we are going through our epic battle, part number 2. So if you want to see part number 1, just click on the channel, go to the video right before this one, or maybe you'll see it up around here or in the description. But in the part number 1, we covered the search volume differences between Andrew Yang and Donald Trump. Seems to be almost like a movement behind Andrew Yang and gaining his popularity and awareness over the past several months. So I have a feeling that if somebody wanted to make a bet, I think that the probability of Andrew Yang being the candidate for the Democratic Party is definitely positive. It is not a zero number in terms of probability. And I think that probability over the past several months has just been going up and to the right that he will possibly get that. Anyways, in that first part, we went over Google searches in terms of the volume for these characters, YouTube searches, again, for these characters, Donald Trump and Andrew Yang. And then we looked at their personal Twitter accounts and some of like the work they were putting in to try to understand who was winning on those platforms. And then lastly, we looked at Facebook. So now in this part, and this is part number 2, we're going to take a look at their personal websites and how they rank. We're looking at the data behind the website. We're not actually going to look at the website. We're going to look at the number of visitors and how this ranks on a global basis between Trump's website and Andrew Yang's website to see how popular they are. This is going to be a little bit more broad, right? Because people outside the United States could go to these people's websites, but if you've ever been to one of these websites, it's basically just a giant, infomercial to try to get you to donate money. So it's basically, I don't think there would be a tremendous amount of relevance. Maybe you can leave your conspiracy theories down below about like the financing portion of it, but there's a lot of reporting that goes into how, I don't know, you can make up your own mind. If you have any interesting data on that, you can also leave it down below, and maybe that would be another video. Then we're going to look at the usage for the hashtag Donald Trump versus Andrew Yang. We're going to look at it on 2 places. What this test does is talks about how much people are actually talking about these characters, right? Donald Trump, you're going to use that hashtag when you're commenting about Donald Trump, or the same thing with Andrew Yang. So this gives us an idea how many people are talking about it on Twitter and how many people are talking about it on Instagram. I'm not able to segregate those because I don't want to pay for a membership, but I get to see the macro view here. And then lastly, we're going to take a look at each one of these individual characters' YouTube channels. The YouTube channel for Trump actually looks like it's run by his daughter, but it does say the official YouTube channel for Donald J. Trump. So we are using that channel. And I looked through a bunch of their videos, and it's basically all just Donald Trump videos. So that's this one we are using. It does have almost 200,000 subscribers, which is interesting. A little bit of preview there. Now, let's get into the video. My name is Sam. For those of you for your first time here, welcome. And anybody who's returning, it's good to freaking see you. So now, with Andrew Yang's website, it looks like the graph over the past 90 days in terms of its relevance on a global scale of where this website ranks is currently trending up and to the right. However, over the past 90 days, it came down for about 2/3 of that time, and then it looks like right around the end of July, it saw a big uptick, and then it just has been up and to the right since then. It went from 28,000th ranking to about 19,700th. So a big increase in terms of popularity over the past roughly 2 months almost. End of July, we're in August. Basically 1 month, the last 25 days, it's been a pretty big increase in that. Now, if we go over to Donald Trump's, his has just been, Andrew Yang's looked like this, right? 2/3 of the way the trend had been down in terms of popularity of his website in terms of a global ranking. And now it's been up like this to the right. When you look at Donald Trump, his is ranked 16,300th. So that Donald Trump is By the way, I'm going to give a preview for the other videos. If you guys go back and check out the channel, you know what I'm talking about at this point. But if I've looked at Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden and Elizabeth Warren, and I've made videos on that, so go compare. You can look at those. And if you look at their website ranking versus Andrew Yang, they're like, Andrew Yang's here and like they're way the fuck up here. So Andrew Yang, in terms of relevance to Donald Trump, is they're like within, you know, a couple thousand, 19,000th versus 16,000th. They're 3,000 away roughly. And the other candidates are just fucking like miles and miles away. I think the closest was 54th thousandth, and I think that was Bernie Sanders. So if you want to check out those videos and that analysis, just jump on the channel and search for those. But that was a very interesting takeaway. If you do look at the growth rate, just to remember over the past 24 days, today is August 24th, for Andrew Yang, he has definitely been at a higher slope of growth. Say Donald Trump has been like this, and Andrew Yang has been growing like this. So he's growing at a faster rate in terms of his website. And as I mentioned, they're not that far apart. Where the other candidates were. Let's move on. Well, let's give them a ranking. I almost want to give this to Andrew Yang. Well, let's look at one more thing here. We're going to look at the average time somebody is on one of these sites, and we're going to look at the total page views on average per visit. And then we'll draw the conclusion of who won this battle. So the average page views per visitor is 2.5 for Andrew Yang. And the average page views for Donald Trump per visitor is 1.9. So on a percentage basis, there's a substantially more page views for Andrew Yang's audience versus Donald Trump's, even though Donald Trump's is ranked higher. But as we saw on the first part of this video on the Google and YouTube, Donald Trump had a lot more search volume. So that kind of tells about his site being more relevant, but not necessarily as engaged. So the audience that is going to Andrew Yang seems way more engaged, and that also confirms when you look at the data, because 3 minutes and 11 seconds on average per day people are spending on Andrew Yang's website versus Donald Trump's at 2 minutes and 45 seconds. So this is not where you want to go lower in terms of the minutes. Basically, think about this: the more time you can take from people, you can kind of do what you want in a sense, and not in a malicious or like evil way, but like the more time you have of other people's, the more you're likely to be able to influence them, whether that's positive or negative, that's up to you, but the more time you have, you know. So if we're going to go by this, because these are the closest to comparison I've done, and based on the 3 factors that we have over the past 90 days, the engagement from the page views and from the daily average amount of time on the site. First, let's look at the 90 days. In that one, Andrew Yang was down, and then it's been up. So the growth rate's been greater. I almost want to say that's to Donald Trump or a tie, because Donald Trump had just been up and to the right, even though it's not been growing as quickly. But so I'm going to say that one's maybe a tie. In terms of page views, we're going to go with Andrew Yang. In terms of the time on the site, we're going to go with Andrew Yang, because it was 2.5 page views per visitor versus 1.9 for Donald Trump. So a lot more pages are being viewed on Andrew's site, and people are spending more time on that site. They're spending 3 minutes and 11 seconds on average versus 2 minutes and 44 seconds on average. So this happens to be the first category that Andrew Yang has won. So out of these categories, right, this is a candidate hopeful, and he just won one category. Now, let's go on to see how many people are talking about these people, right? Because that's kind of a relevant thing, and it's not just the media, right? Because that's what's always out there, but what is actually going on? And that's where we get this, because you have everyday users using the hashtag Andrew Yang, or everyday people like you and me who use Donald Trump as a hashtag or Andrew Yang as a hashtag. And that kind of gives a relevance of like what's going on like in reality versus like fucking what the media says. You know what I mean? Like you don't fucking believe anything they say anyway. You know, it's always fucking twisted. So so we're going to take a look at those usage on Twitter and on Instagram. And to start with, we're looking at Andrew Yang and the popularity over the past 2 months has been kind of flat. Slightly up and to the right, but in terms of people talking about it and that kind of thing, it's been kind of flat, but in the past, month, it's had a little bit of upward trend to it. It got a big spike, but that's just been very volatile, and it still looks like it's going up and to the right. But I'm not, you know what I mean? It's been very volatile over the past month, so I'm not really sure, but it does look like it's up and to the right. Now, if we take a look at, Donald Trump, the average level already, so the level of usage on this website that ranks these hashtags on these platforms is higher on average for Donald Trump. It's in the 40s in terms of the popularity of the usage, in the 30s for Andrew Yang, jumped up to 50 a couple of times, but Donald Trump on average has been a lot less volatile than Andrew Yang's. But it's been in the 50s and the 40s, and I think it jumped up this. Yeah, it's been mainly in the 50s, but a little bit in the 40s as well. Now, I just wanted to point out something interesting here. Donald's been basically kind of like flat, it looks like. And it looks like it's trending down just a tiny bit in the micro in the past like 2 weeks, but not necessarily, and it's only been a little bit of a trend down. But there's 2 humps where the popularity has increased. Coincidentally, if you look at the time period when Donald Trump was down, and I have no idea, but Andrew Yang was way up when Donald Trump was way down. In the time periods when Donald Trump was up, Andrew Yang was down. So that's kind of interesting to tell what is going on in people's minds, and they don't have the capacity to be able to talk about 2 things, or there's just a overwhelming more people talking, and they can shift back and forth continually, because that's what it looks like when we're taking a look at the data, that people can go back and forth between the 2 of these ones. So when we were going to look at the popularity of these 2, this one's gonna have to go to Donald Trump, even though he's had a little bit of a downward trend over the past 2 weeks, where Andrew Yang's had a little bit of an upward trend, or much more of an upward trend, but it's a lot more volatile. The overall usage for Donald Trump is just higher. So in this category of hashtags, we're gonna give this to Donald Trump. Now, if you guys want to follow along with this, I'm going to continue reporting on this and as time goes on. So make sure you press that subscribe button. And now let's get into the last category here. We've got the YouTube channel for each one of these characters. Now, the YouTube channel for Andrew Yang has a total of 80,000 subscribers roughly versus 186,000 for Donald Trump. We've got almost 20 million views total for Donald Trump's versus 4 million for Andrew Yang. And let's come down and look at some more data relevant to the now, right? Because that's just the aggregation of data over time that we were looking at. Now let's look at some stuff like what's actually happening. And to do that, we're going to look at the past 30 days of views on these channels. So how many views has Donald Trump had in the past 30 days on his channel? Just under 600,000 views, so 586,620. So that's a substantial amount of views. That's 11 times more than like how many views I'm probably having around mid 30s to 50,000 views per month. So substantially higher than, what I'm getting. Now coming over to Andrew Yang, how many total views has he had over the last 30 days? Just under 800,000 views. So quite a bit more views on Andrew Yang, which is kind of interesting. That's kind of interesting because Andrew Yang lost YouTube in terms of search volume, but that just is a interesting tell because his YouTube channel has more views. That's an interesting contrast. Next, we're going to look at the total number of subscribers over the past 30 days. For Andrew Yang, we have 17,000, just shy of 17. Oh, wow. So just shy of 17,000 for Andrew Yang. And so, by the way, some of the stuff I'm looking at kind of like firsthand, I like pulled it up, but I didn't really kind of dive into it. And Donald Trump has gained 4,600 over the past 30 days. 4,600 versus almost 17,000. So 4 times greater almost. That's pretty significant in terms of the number of subscribers that Andrew Yang is gaining in terms of the total volume. And if we came back up, he's got 80,000 subscribers versus 186,000 subscribers. So he's growing at a much faster rate, and I would expect that his channel to probably overtake, if this trend were to slightly continue or just kind of level out at this level in the next 6 months. I would if Andrew Yang was still in this, I would expect this to have some type of crossover, or probably even sooner, which is that's pretty interesting. I want to take a look at that now. Now we're gonna, this category, this is the last category here, and we're going to give this one to Andrew Yang. He has a much smaller channel, however, he gets a lot more views, and he has a much smaller channel, about half as big of a channel, but he gets more subscribers. So the people on his channel are just they more engaged and more vigor to them. If you guys like this type of analysis, just let me know down below. I'd appreciate any feedback. Now, just to recap what we got here, we've got 8 different categories. We've got 7 different categories here between these this battle that we're doing, and the search volume was just overwhelmingly and way more for Trump. That's not on a global basis, that's in the US. Next, the search volume again on YouTube was much higher, but we did see a big trend in terms of the volume of searches increasing for Yang. So that over the past 6 months or so. And on to Twitter. Twitter is kind of like the thing, right? Like when you work out, like I do, there might be like one body part that's just like really developed for you, which you don't really have to think about training too much when you're training it, or it's just way easier to train. And that's Twitter for Donald Trump, I feel like, in the sense, and I'm not saying that in a bad way by any, I think that's amazing to be able to have that much attention, to be able to put that much work in, to be able to gain that much attention, whether you like him or you don't like him. I think that the sheer amount of effort it takes to have 64 million followers on Twitter is just tremendous. I think that's an incredible thing to just have that many people following you, and it just dwarfs what Andrew Yang has in terms of the total number of people that were following per 30 days. And the only positive was that Andrew Yang has been putting in more work. He's been tweeting more on average over the past year or so than Donald Trump. His channel is also growing faster than Donald Trump's is. However, substantially faster. However, it's just so small. It's got less than 1 million. So that one we gave to Donald again. And the same thing on Facebook. It's just dwarfs it in size. So that was an easy win. That was the quickest round for Donald Trump. Then we went to their websites, right? That's where Andrew Yang really held up on a lot of different things. Again, his website also indicated that his people who are interested in him are much more interested or engaged with understanding, or just, interested in what is available around him. They're so hungry for content around him. Then we went up to the hashtag usage. Both were pretty relevant. When you look at the other videos that I did, other candidates didn't have any usage at all of the hashtag. So, Biden, Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Cooper, whatever, Booker, something or whatever, they didn't have any usage of their hashtag, meaning really nobody was talking about him, or very little. And Andrew Yang was substantially way above them. But overall, Trump had just way more people talking about him. So that round went to Trump. And then on the YouTube channel was the thing that we just took a look at. And he's getting a lot more views on his channel that's substantially smaller, and a lot more subscribers. So that's kind of interesting. It would be interesting to see the average watch time per video on this, but I don't have that data. I just have it for mine. Now, as I mentioned earlier, if you like this type of content, let me know down below in the comments. This is a new style of video that I've been picking up a little bit on, so let me know down below. Don't forget to subscribe to see other videos like this in the future. I'm going to continue making these comparisons where we actually get to the data, not what the fucking media says is like happening or what the polls say is happening. Because when you look at the polls, they say one thing, and reality, when you look at the data, says something else. So if you want to follow along with that journey as I uncover more of this and follow this into the future, make sure you press that subscribe button, because then you get to follow along exactly what I'm seeing and how I think about things. Again, in the description is, actually I think this is the first time, not again, there in the description is a link for my Instagram. If you want to come over there and say what's up, go right ahead. I don't really talk about politics on there. I talk a lot more about fitness, but jump over, say what's up. And yeah, I will talk to you later. Peace.